Here's story number one. Democrats, we're in it for the little guy. We're taking care of these struggling college students. You are? Really? Because the data doesn't support that assertion at all. Wall Street Journal article today. The great student loan scam. Democrats lobby Biden to write off debt for affluent borrowers. Affluent borrowers? I thought the Democrats were the party of the little guy. Ha! You fell for that? What a dope. Screenshot from the piece. So who is this student loan forgiveness proposal? Who is this really going to benefit? Well, let's go to the numbers. Joe, they're the party of science, the Democrats. So let's go to the science of actual numbers and arithmetic and things like data and see who this student loan forgiveness, air quotes, is actually going to benefit. Quote, Wall Street Journal, University of Chicago study in December estimated that the top 10% of households. Wait, am I reading that right? Is that the top 10%? That doesn't say the bottom 10. No, it says the top. Okay. It estimated that the top 10%, Paul, is that, can we get a double on that? She's giving me a head nod. The top 10% of households by income would receive 7 times as much of a benefit from a $50,000 student loan write-down as the bottom 10%. Doctors and lawyers with 6-figure salaries should be able to repay their loans and don't need the $50,000 write-off. I thought they were in it for the little guy. So then we do a study on who this student loan forgiveness proposal would benefit. We find out it would benefit I'm not attacking the wealthy. I don't need the write-off. Don't give it to me. I don't want it. But it would do it at the expense of the bottom 10% who are going to pay taxes to support a student loan write-off for people with the most debt who are at the higher end of the income scale. And that makes sense to you because why? Because we're in it for the little guy. The little guy. You're full of things that rhyme with hit. You're just making that up. There is no data at all to support your assertion that your student loan forgiveness is fighting for anything other than wealthy families. Please stop the nonsense. Stop telling us transferring our money to the government and the government then taking the money I've worked for and others and you have worked for to pay off wealthy families who took out a lot of student loan debt. How is that fair again? And I'm going to get to these Milton Friedman videos in a minute where he entirely annihilates this stupid idea that somehow giving money to the government to redistribute to others is ever fair. They're classics. All right, second article. Democrats are in it for the little guy. Really? Here's another one. Americans for Tax Reform. Elizabeth Warren. This was in yesterday's show notes. Please subscribe to the show notes or the newsletter. It's the same thing. Bongino.com/newsletter. We'd really appreciate it. Allows us to communicate with you directly. Elizabeth Warren introduced a $2.75 trillion wealth tax in the Senate. You may say, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. We're really going to tax the snot out of those wealthy folks. Really? Because when you do actual economic studies of these wealth taxes, you find out that the wealth tax accumulates year after year on assets you've already paid taxes on. So if you happen to be wealthy, and the definition of that changes all the time, which is convenient, and you've bought a house or assets and you're taxed on your overall wealth, even though you bought those assets on taxed income you already paid taxes on, and then every year you have to pay taxes on those assets, well, what's going to happen, folks? People are going to start selling assets quickly, right? And moving their money into various other entities and other countries maybe and other places where they're not taxed. No, you didn't really think of that, did you? And what happens when that happens? The jobs these evil, wealthy people support, the same ones, by the way, you're giving a massive tax benefit to the student loan forgiveness. They don't see the irony in that at all, though. The same ones you're taxing, you're then giving a benefit to from the student loan thing, are going to take their jobs and their businesses and go elsewhere. But don't worry. The Democrats are in it for the little guy. Don't you worry. Don't ask any questions. Here's another one, Wall Street Journal today. The costs of killing the Keystone XL pipeline. Even their Democrat allies are asking Biden to reconsider his executive order. Remember, they're in it for the little guy. Killing jobs, giving a student loan benefit to wealthy people who don't need it. All about the little guy, folks. Killing jobs to a wealth tax. So this Keystone Pipeline, I thought they were about the little guy and solid middle-class union jobs, because that's really weird, because when Biden signed an executive order canceling the Keystone Pipeline, he in fact de facto fired union workers with solid middle-class jobs, but I thought they were in it for the little guy again. What is wrong with me? Why can't I get my story straight? Well, here are the facts again. 14 Republican state attorney generals wrote to Biden asking him to reconsider his Keystone diktat. The AG said said that Montana will lose $58 million in tax revenue with the cancellation of Keystone, and quote, 5 of the 6 impacted counties are designated high poverty areas. Gosh, that's weird. Again, I thought they were in this for the little guy. What am I missing here? Quote, so your decision to shut down the project means less money for schools, less money for public services, and the elimination of business and job opportunities in those areas where they are most needed. So again, I'm just having a tough time making sense of this. So on one hand, the Democrats are fighting for a SALT tax exemption to be reinstituted in high tax liberal states that gives a tax break to very wealthy folks who pay high state taxes because they have high incomes. So the Democrats are fighting for that SALT tax. They're also fighting for a student loan forgiveness program that benefits wealthy households 7 times more than poor households. So they want to fight for tax breaks for the rich, the SALT exemption and a student loan plan that helps them, while simultaneously taxing the rich to pay for the rich's own tax benefits, do a wealth tax, and canceling middle-class jobs that pay into a tax pool in Montana that benefit the poor. But don't worry. The Democrats said they're in it for the little guy. Here's my final gem of the day. And the Democrats are now the party of the elites and the anti-science party. The New York Stock Exchange isn't moving yet. They want to revive a stock transfer tax. You're like, oh, that sounds great. We'll hammer those rich stock traders, those bunch of idiots. A revived stock transfer tax that is moving in Albany could force us to find a new home, the New York Stock Exchange. Probably saying to yourself, that's a great idea. We need one of those federally. Sell a stock, you rich stock losers. You should pay those, you wealthy Thurston Howell-like zeros. Lovey. You should pay that transfer tax. You deserve it. Yes, Lovey. Right? Well, what's that transfer tax actually going to do? Remember science, Joe, science. We're doing science and facts. So let's see what it is. There you go. Is that what the pop culture means? I actually used to like that song. Science. Well, here's actual science and facts. Of course, this is going to be immune to Democrat skulls where this information won't process. They don't have to think past the talking point. Stock transfer tax. That'd be great. Hammer those rich people. Quote, Wall Street generally won't bear the burden of the stock transfer tax. The end investor will ultimately pick up the tab. The levy would be explicitly passed back on customer orders. Oh, gosh, liberals, you didn't really think of that, did you? They're like, I don't care. Those customers are wealthy losers. I hate them all. Not really. Quote from the piece. There's also an implicit cost as market participants forced to pay the tax incorporated into their prices, raising the prices paid by individual investors. This is getting bad really fast. Vanguard estimates that a financial transaction tax of 10 basis points would force retirement account investors, oh my gosh, that sounds like me, to work roughly 2.5 extra years before retiring to reach the same savings goals they might have achieved without the tax. Damn, that blew up in your face quick. I thought they were all about fighting for the little guy, the Democrats. But now you're telling me this stock transfer tax, which is going to eat those rich, is actually going to help hurt the retail investor and his pension fund, and they may have to work 2.5 years longer to reach the savings goals they had to survive. That doesn't sound good, but liberals, again, don't let facts and science. Don't let that get in the way of your stupid talking points.